The transport ship landed on Prime with a soft hum, stepped out onto the platform and looked up at the crystalline towers that stretched into the purple sky. He had seen many strange worlds during his years in security work, but this place was different. Everything seemed to glow with its own light. Gardens floated in the air, held up by technology he did not understand. Wealthy aliens in expensive clothing walked past him without a second glance. Adjusted his uniform and picked up his single bag. The security firm had sent him here with one job: protect Queen Lyra of House. The file they gave him was thin. Young queen, rich beyond measure, mining operations across 17 star systems, no living family, refused bodyguards for 3 years. Recent assassination attempts changed her mind. A tall alien waited at the end of the platform. She had 4 arms and skin that shimmered like moonlight. Her eyes were large and dark, watching him approach with clear doubt on her face. "You are the human?" she asked. Her voice was sharp. "From Terra Security Solutions." "I am chief advisor to Queen Lyra." She looked him up and down. "You seem small." Was used to this reaction. Humans were not impressive by galactic standards. They were slower than most species, weaker than many. Their senses were average at best, but his company did not send him across the galaxy for his strength. "I do my job well," said simply. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see. Follow me." The palace was enormous. They walked through halls made of crystal that showed the stars beyond. Servants moved silently past them. Guards in golden armor stood at every door, counted them, noted their positions, checked the exits. Old habits from his military days. "The other guards do not like that a human was hired," said as they walked. "They think it is an insult." "What do you think?" "I think the Queen has stayed alive this long by being smart. If she approved your hire, there must be a reason." Stopped at a large door. "These are your quarters. You have 1 hour. Then you will meet the Queen at the diplomatic dinner." His room was larger than any place he had lived before. The bed could fit 5 people. The window showed the entire city below. He ignored all of it and spent his hour studying the palace layout on his data pad. He memorized guard positions, door locations, and emergency protocols. When the hour ended, came to collect him. She led him to a dining hall that made his quarters look small. A table stretched the length of the room. Aliens of every shape and size sat in high-backed chairs. At the head of the table sat Queen Lyra. Had seen her picture in the file, but pictures did not capture presence. She was with 4 arms and glowing skin. But where seemed practical, Lyra looked regal. She wore robes of deep blue that seemed to flow like water. Jewelry covered her arms. A crown of silver stars rested on her head. Her eyes found him immediately. They were cold. "The human bodyguard," she said. Her voice carried across the room. "Take your position behind my chair." Walked to his spot and stood at attention. The dinner began. He had studied alien customs on the flight over, but reading about them and living them were different things. The food moved on the plates. Some guests ate with their hands. Others absorbed nutrients through their skin. Conversations happened in 6 languages at once, with translator devices whispering meanings into ears. Watched everything. He noticed the guard by the door who kept touching his weapon. He saw the servant who poured wine with shaking hands. He observed the guest who stared too long at the Queen. "Tell me, human," said an alien across from the Queen. He had scales and 3 eyes. "Why should a queen trust her life to your kind? Humans are so fragile." "That is why she has guards," said calmly. "But you have no natural weapons, no armor plating, no enhanced senses." "I have eyes that work well enough." The alien laughed. Others joined in. Queen Lyra did not. She ate her meal in silence. The dinner lasted 3 hours. His legs ached from standing, but he did not move. When it finally ended, the Queen stood and walked from the room, followed 3 steps behind. They moved through empty corridors. The Queen's robes whispered against the floor. She did not speak or look back. walked beside her discussing tomorrow's schedule. At the Queen's chambers, Lyra finally turned to him. "You will stand guard outside my door. If I need you, I will call." "Yes, Your Majesty." She paused, studying his face. "The others mock you." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Does it bother you?" "No, Your Majesty." "Why not?" "Words do not hurt me. I am here to keep you safe. What others think does not matter." Something changed in her expression. Just for a moment the coldness cracked, then it was back. "Stand your post." The door closed behind her, took his position in the hallway. Two other guards stood at the far end. They whispered to each other and glanced his way, laughing. Hours passed. The palace grew quiet, remained still. Then he heard voices from inside the chamber. The door was thick, but sound carried through the crystal walls. Queen Lyra and were talking. "He is too small," the queen said. "How can he protect me?" "You chose him from the candidates," replied. "I chose his record, 4 years of military service, 12 successful protection assignments, no clients lost, but looking at him." The queen's voice was tired. "I am surrounded by giants and I hire the one who seems most likely to break. Perhaps that is exactly why he survives." There was a long silence. Then Lyra spoke again, softer now. "I am so tired. Every day is meetings and threats and games. I must be perfect. I must be strong. I cannot show weakness. You are the strongest person I know." "I do not feel strong. I feel like I am drowning and everyone is watching to see when I will go under." "You will not drown. I will not allow it. You are all I have left." Heard the pain in those words. He understood duty. He understood the weight of responsibility. He had carried it before during the war when his squad looked to him for orders, when civilians needed protection, when everything went wrong and he had to choose who lived. He knew what it meant to stand alone. The voices stopped, remained at his post through the night. When dawn light filled the corridors and the palace began to wake, he was still there, watching, waiting, ready. The door opened. Queen Lyra stepped out. She looked surprised to see him in the exact same position. "You did not rest?" she asked. "I was on duty, Your Majesty." She studied him for a long moment. "What is your name again?" "Well, I suppose we will see if you are worth the money I am paying you." She walked past him down the corridor, but thought he saw something different in her eyes. Not warmth exactly, but perhaps the smallest amount of curiosity. It was a start. The first week passed in a blur of routine. Followed Queen Lyra everywhere. To council meetings where nobles argued about mining rights. To her private office where she reviewed reports until late at night. To formal events where she smiled and made promises she clearly did not want to make. She barely spoke to him. When she did, it was only to give orders. "Stand there, follow me, wait outside." The other guards continued to mock him. They called him the pet human when they thought he could not hear, ignored them. He had dealt with worse. On the 8th day, Queen Lyra announced she would visit the city market, frowned at this news. "You have not gone to the market in 2 years, said. "It is not safe." "I am tired of being trapped in this palace," Lyra replied. "I want to see my people, bring the human. He can prove himself useful or not." The market spread across 10 blocks of the lower city. Vendors sold everything from food to technology to living creatures that sang in harmony. Crowds filled the streets. Music played from unseen sources. The air smelled of spices and ozone. Stayed close to the queen. She wore simpler clothes today, but people still recognized her. They bowed as she passed. Some called out blessings. Others asked for help with their problems. Lyra stopped at a fruit stand. The vendor, an old alien with skin and kind eyes, offered her something that looked like a glowing apple. "For you, Your Majesty, no charge." "I insist on paying," Lyra said. She smiled, and it was the first real smile had seen from her. While she spoke with the vendor, scanned the crowd. His training made it automatic. Count the exits. Note the people who stood too still. Watch for hands reaching into pockets. Then he saw it. A figure in the crowd 30 meters away, wearing a cloak with the hood up. Hand reaching inside the cloak. Body position wrong, too tense. Moved without thinking. He stepped between the queen and the threat just as the figure pulled out a plasma pistol. Down shouted. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind the fruit stand as the first shot burned through the air where she had been standing. Screams filled the market. People ran in every direction. The royal guards drew their weapons, but they were looking in the wrong direction. They had not seen the shooter. Pointed cloak, northeast corner. The guards finally spotted the target. They moved to pursue, but the shooter was already running. Within seconds, he disappeared into the panicking crowd. Help the queen to her feet. Are you hurt? She stared at him with wide eyes. How did you see him? The guards did not. I did not. I watched the crowd. His body language was wrong. Body language. She repeated the word slowly. You saw it from that far away. Yes, Your Majesty. Rushed over, her 4 arms moving in agitation. We must return to the palace immediately. The ride back was silent. Queen Lyra kept looking at like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. That evening she summoned him to her private study. This was the first time he had been inside. Books lined the walls. Star charts covered a table. A window showed the night sky. Sit, she said. Hesitated. He was security. He stood. That was an order. Sit. He sat on the edge of a chair. The queen poured 2 glasses of something blue and offered him one. He took it but did not drink. You saved my life today, she said. That is my job. The other guards did not see the threat. Why did you? Humans are good at reading patterns, at seeing things that do not fit. We are not the fastest or strongest species, but we notice details. Lyra sat across from him. Tell me about Earth. The question surprised him. What do you want to know? Everything, your world, your people, why you left to work across the galaxy. So told her. He talked about Earth, a single planet with no natural advantages, how humans had to work together to survive, how they built civilizations without claws or armor or telepathy, just minds and hands and stubbornness. He told her about the colonies, the wars, the peace that followed. He told her about his military service, about the day raiders attacked a colony ship and his squad was sent to help, about how they arrived too late to save everyone, about the civilians who died while he fought. I lost 12 people that day, said quietly. 12 people I was supposed to protect. I carry their names with me. Lyra was silent for a long moment. I lost my parents when I was young. They died in an accident at one of our mining stations. I was 19. Suddenly I was queen. Suddenly everyone depended on me. She looked at her hands. Sometimes I feel like I am still 19, still lost, still pretending to know what I am doing. You seem very certain when you give orders. That is the crown talking, not me. The crown must always be certain, but underneath, she met his eyes. Underneath, I am terrified. Fear is not weakness, said. I am afraid every day I might fail to protect you. That fear keeps me sharp. The others do not seem afraid. They swagger and boast. Then they are fools. A good guard knows there is always danger, always something that can go wrong. Lyra smiled slightly. You are very honest. Would you prefer I lie to you? No, everyone else in this palace lies. They tell me what I want to hear. They smile and make promises they will not keep. They call me wise queen while plotting behind my back. She stood and walked to the window. Do you know why I hired you? No, Your Majesty. Your file said you lost clients. Most security companies hide those failures. Yours listed them openly, 12 names, and beneath each name a detailed report of what went wrong and what you learned. You did not hide your mistakes. You owned them. She turned to face him. I am surrounded by people who pretend to be perfect. I wanted someone who knew what failure felt like. Someone who would not be careless with my life because he understands what it means to lose someone. Did not know what to say to that. You may call me Lyra when we are alone, she said. Your Majesty is too formal for someone who saved my life. That would not be appropriate. I am the Queen. I decide what is appropriate, she smiled. But if it makes you uncomfortable, you may continue with your Majesty. A beeping sound interrupted them. His voice came through the comm system. Your Majesty, the Council requires your attention. Lyra sighed. I must go. Tomorrow there is another formal event. More nobles who want things from me. More smiles I must pretend are real. She walked to the door, then paused. Thank you for today and for listening. When she was gone, sat alone in the study. He looked at the glass of blue liquid she had given him and finally took a sip. It tasted like starlight and sadness. Outside the window, the city glowed in the darkness. Somewhere out there, someone wanted the Queen dead. His job was to make sure they failed. But something had changed tonight. The Queen was no longer just a client to protect. She was a person, young and afraid and trying her best to be strong. Understood that better than anyone. He stood and returned to his post outside her chambers. The other guards gave him curious looks. Word had spread about the market incident, about how the humans saw what they missed. Let them look, let them wonder, had work to do. The night stretched long and quiet. Inside the chamber, he heard the Queen working late into the night, papers rustling, soft sighs, the weight of a crown that never slept. Stood guard and waited for the dawn. The grand celestial gala lasted a full week. Ships arrived from across the galaxy carrying nobles, merchants, and politicians. They came to see and be seen, to make deals and break promises, to dance and scheme under the light of distant stars. Queen Lyra attended every event. She wore different robes each day, each more elaborate than the last. She smiled until her face must have hurt. She shook hands and made small talk and negotiated mining contracts with people who smiled while planning to cheat her. Watched her grow more tired each day. On the first day, she stood tall and spoke with confidence. By the third day, her shoulders slumped when she thought no one was looking. By the fifth day, dark circles appeared under her eyes despite the makeup that tried to hide them. You should rest, told her after another long dinner. I cannot rest. There are 2 more days. If I show weakness, they will circle like predators. She rubbed her temples with 2 of her hands. I must be perfect. You are not a machine. Queens might as well be. The 6th evening brought the largest event yet. A reception on the observation deck, a massive platform that floated high above the palace. Clear walls showed the nebula gardens beyond, clouds of colored gas that bloomed like flowers among the stars. Hundreds of guests filled the deck. Musicians played instruments that created light as well as sound. Servers moved through the crowd with drinks that changed color as you held them. Everyone was beautiful and wealthy and false. Lyra moved through them like a dancer, speaking to each group, laughing at jokes that were not funny, listening to complaints about taxes and regulations. Followed 3 steps behind, watching the crowd for threats. But the real threat was exhaustion. He saw it in the way Lyra swayed slightly when she stood too long, in how her smile became slower to form, in the way her words took just a moment longer to come. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Slowly, the crowd thinned. The important people had made their deals and left. Only a few dozen remained, standing in small groups and talking in low voices. Lyra stood by the window, looking out at the nebula gardens. She had been speaking with a merchant about shipping routes, but the merchant had wandered away to find another drink. For a moment, the Queen was alone. Saw her shoulders drop, saw the mask slip, saw the exhaustion that she could finally, briefly, stop hiding. He stepped closer. "Your Majesty, you have been standing for 8 hours. Perhaps you should sit." She glanced at him and he saw how tired her eyes were. "If I sit, I might never stand up again." "There is a bench." He nodded to a curved seat near the window, partially hidden by a decorative plant. "It would not look good for the Queen to sit while others stand. Most of the guests have left. The ones who remain are too drunk or too busy to notice." A small laugh escaped her. "You are very practical." "It is one of my few talents." She walked to the bench and sat with a sigh. Her 4 arms rested in her lap. "Just for a moment," she said, "then I will return to being queenly." Stood beside the bench, his position allowing him to watch the remaining guests and the doors. The spot was quiet, away from the music and conversation. Through the window, the nebula gardens swirled in silence. "They are beautiful," Lyra said softly, looking at the gardens. "When I was young, my father brought me here. He said each cloud was born from an ancient star that died long ago. Their death created new beauty, new life." She was quiet for a moment. "I wish he could have lived to see me rule, to tell me if I am doing it right." "You are doing well." "How would you know? You have been here only 3 weeks." "I watch you work. I see how hard you try, how you listen to your advisors but make your own choices, how you care about your people even when it costs you." Kept his eyes on the crowd. "That is not something that can be faked." "Sometimes I feel like everything is fake. This smile, this confidence, this crown." Her voice was getting softer. "Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I just stopped, if I put down the crown and walked away." "Where would you go?" "I do not know. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one needs anything from me." She leaned back against the bench. "Somewhere I could just be Lyra instead of Queen Lyra of House." "That sounds nice." "It is a foolish dream. I cannot abandon my people, my duty." She yawned, covering her mouth with one hand. "But it is a nice dream." Said nothing. The music played softly. The guests talked and laughed. The nebula gardens turned slowly outside the window. He felt a light weight against his right side. Looked down. Queen Lyra had leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing had become slow and steady. She was asleep. For a moment did not move, did not breathe. His mind raced through options. Wake her, but that would embarrass her in front of any guests who might see. She was the queen. Showing weakness was dangerous. Call for her, but that would create a scene. More people would notice. More people would talk. Stay still, let her rest. She clearly needed it desperately. The choice was obvious. Remained perfectly still. His shoulder began to ache almost immediately. The angle was awkward. His right arm was pinned against his side, but he did not move. 10 minutes passed, 20, an hour. Some of the remaining guests glanced their way. Most looked away quickly, pretending they had not seen. One started to approach, but held up his left hand in a stop gesture. The guest understood and turned away. Another hour passed. Appeared from across the deck. She saw them and hurried over, her 4 arms moving in agitation. She opened her mouth to speak. Shook his head sharply. "Be quiet, do not wake her." Paused. She looked at the sleeping queen, then at the queen again. Understanding crossed her face. She nodded once and, positioning herself nearby to redirect anyone who came too close. The observation deck slowly emptied. Servers cleaned up glasses and plates, moving quietly. The musicians packed their instruments. The stars turned overhead in their ancient dance. Shoulder burned, his legs cramped, his back ached from holding so still. He ignored all of it. 3 hours, 4, 5. Through the window, the darkness outside began to change. The first hint of dawn, if dawn was the right word for a planet that orbited a blue star. 6 hours after she had fallen asleep, Queen Lyra stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment she seemed confused about where she was. Then she realized. She sat up quickly, her face flushing with color. Oh no, I fell asleep. I fell asleep on you. She looked. How long was I? About 6 hours, Your Majesty. 6 hours? She stared at him in horror. You let me sleep on you for 6 hours. You needed the rest. But your shoulder, She stopped, noticing how carefully he was moving his right arm. You are in pain. You must be in terrible pain. Why did you not wake me? It seemed like you needed sleep more than I needed comfort. That is, Lyra did not seem to have words. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. You should have woken me immediately. With respect, Your Majesty, you gave me an order weeks ago. You said my job was to protect you. Being well-rested protects you better than any weapon. So I did my job. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You stayed still for 6 hours because you decided sleep was part of my protection. Yes. That is insane. Perhaps. Lyra stood up from the bench. The observation deck was empty now except for standing discreetly by the far door. Dawn light filled the space, painting everything in shades of blue and gold. No one has ever, Lyra started, then stopped. In my entire life, no one has ever put my comfort above their own. Not like that. Not for 6 hours while in pain. It was not so bad. Liar, you can barely move your arm. It will be fine in an hour. She looked at him for a long moment. Something had changed in her expression. The coldness he had seen when they first met was completely gone. In its place was something else, something softer. Thank you, she said quietly. Not just for last night, for everything, for seeing me, the real me. You make it easy, Your Majesty. Lyra, she said. When we are alone, call me Lyra, I insist. Before he could respond, approached. Your Majesty, you have the final gala event in 3 hours. You should rest in your chambers. Yes, of course, Lyra looked at, and you need to rest that shoulder. That is an order. As you wish. They left the observation deck together. Word of what happened spread through the palace like fire. By midday, every guard knew, every servant knew, every noble knew. The human bodyguard had let the queen sleep on his shoulder for 6 hours without moving. Some aliens found it amusing, others found it strange, but most found it impossible to understand. Why would anyone endure pain for someone else's comfort? What purpose did it serve? But understood, and he thought maybe Lyra was beginning to understand too. Sometimes the greatest strength was not in action, but in stillness, not in power, but in patience. It was a very human thing. And perhaps that was exactly what the queen needed. The royal ship traveled back to Prime through the black ocean of space. The journey would take 5 days. 5 days where, for once, the queen had no public appearances, no nobles demanding her time, no diplomatic games to play. Thought she would rest. Instead, she sought his company. It started small. She asked him to join her for breakfast, then lunch, then dinner. She stopped treating him like a servant and started talking to him like a person. They spoke about everything. About his life on Earth, growing up in a small city by the ocean. About her childhood in the palace, lonely despite being surrounded by servants. About the weight of duty and the cost of responsibility. What was it like? She asked one evening. They sat in the ship's observation lounge watching stars stream past. Your military service. Loud, frightening, necessary. Thought back to those years. I joined because I wanted to protect people, to make a difference. I learned that protection has a price. Sometimes you pay it in blood. Do you regret it? No, I regret the people I could not save, but I do not regret trying. Lyra was quiet for a moment. I think about my parents every day, about how they died because a safety system failed. Someone cut corners to save money. Someone decided profit was more important than lives. Her hands clenched. When I became queen, I made new safety rules, stricter ones. The mining companies complained. They said I was costing them money, but no one has died in my mind since then. That is a good legacy. Is it enough? My parents built an empire across 17 systems. What have I built? Rules and regulations. You built safety. You built trust. Those things matter more than empires. She looked at him with those large dark eyes. How do you always know the right thing to say? I do not. I just say what I think is true. That is the same thing, she smiled. The nobles call you simple behind your back. They think humans lack sophistication. They are probably right. No, they mistake complexity for intelligence. They play elaborate games with intricate rules and they think that makes them clever. But you see through all of it. You cut to the truth in a way they cannot. I am just a bodyguard. You are more than that. Lyra hesitated, then reached out with one of her hands. She touched his arm gently. You are my friend, if that is allowed. It is allowed. Her smile brightened the room more than any star. But not everyone was pleased with their growing friendship. Lord Vex, a powerful noble who controlled mining operations on 3 planets, spoke with Lyra on the 3rd day of the journey. Stood outside the meeting room, but he could hear voices rising. You spend too much time with that human, Vex said. His voice was deep and cold. It is unseemly for a queen. I will spend my time with whom I choose, Lyra replied sharply. The court talks. They wonder if you are fit to rule if you cannot maintain proper dignity. My dignity is not your concern. Everything about you is my concern. Have you forgotten my proposal? A union between our houses would secure both our positions. You need a proper consort, a partner of status. I need advisors who know their place. This conversation is over. Heavy footsteps approached the door, stepped back as Lord Vex emerged. The alien was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with dark metallic skin and eyes like red coals. He saw and sneered. The pet, Vex said. Enjoy your time, human, it will not last. After Vex left, entered the meeting room. Lyra stood by the window, her 4 arms crossed. She looked angry. He wants you to marry him, said. He wants my mining operations. Marriage is just his path to them. She turned to face him. He has been pushing this for 2 years. He thinks a queen needs a male consort to be taken seriously. What do you think? I think I am taken seriously enough on my own. But she looked troubled. Still, he is not wrong about one thing. The court does talk about you, about us. They think it is inappropriate. Should I request a transfer? Another guard could replace me. No, the word came out fierce. You are the only person in my life who does not want something from me. The only one who sees me as Lyra instead of Queen Lyra. I will not give that up because small minds cannot understand friendship. They arrived at Prime the next day. The palace had prepared a welcome ceremony. The Festival of New Beginnings happened to fall on their return date, a religious celebration that honored the cycles of death and rebirth. Thousands of citizens gathered in the palace square. Musicians played, dancers performed. At the height of the ceremony, the queen would drink blessed water from the sacred fountain, symbolizing the renewal of her commitment to the people. Did not like it. Too many people, too many angles, too much chaos. I will stay close, he told Lyra before they went out. You always do. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Lyra gave a speech about hope and new beginnings. The crowd cheered. The priests blessed her with smoke and song. Finally, they brought out the ceremonial cup filled with water from the sacred fountain. Watched the priest carefully. The old alien's hands shook as he offered the cup to Lyra. Not unusual for someone so old, but something felt wrong. The priest's eyes would not meet the queen's. His breathing was too fast. His skin had a slight sheen of sweat. Wait, said. Everyone turned to look at him. The priest, the crowd, Lyra. What is wrong? Lyra asked. Stepped forward and took the cup from the surprised priest's hands. Let me taste it first. That is not part of the ceremony, one of the other priests protested. It is now. brought the cup to his lips. He saw Lyra's face change, saw her reach out to stop him, but he drank before she could. The liquid was cold, tasteless. For a moment nothing happened. Then fire exploded through his veins. His vision blurred. The cup fell from his hands and shattered on the ground. He tried to remain standing, but his legs would not hold him. He collapsed. Lyra's voice seemed to come from far away. He felt hands on him, heard shouting, heard the priest who gave him the cup being seized by guards. Poison, someone said. The cup was poisoned. Tried to speak, but his mouth would not work. The pain was incredible. Every cell in his body screamed. His heart beat wrong, too fast then too slow. He could not breathe. Then Lyra's face filled his vision. She was crying. He had never seen her cry before. "Stay with me," she said. Her hands held his face. "Stay with me, that is an order." He wanted to obey. He always obeyed her orders. But the darkness was so heavy and he was so tired. The world went black. When he woke, everything was white. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets, the medical bay. Every part of his body ached. His mouth tasted like metal, but he was alive. He turned his head, moving slowly. Lyra sat beside the bed. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red. Her makeup was gone. She wore simple clothes instead of royal robes. "How long?" His voice came out as a whisper. 3 days. They said the poison should have killed you in minutes, but human biology is different. Your body processes toxins differently than ours. You survived. The priest. Arrested, he confessed. Lord Vex paid him to poison the water. The plan was to blame it on religious radicals to make me look weak and vulnerable. Her voice was hard. "Vex is in custody." "Good." "You are an idiot." Tears ran down her face. "You could have died. You should have died. Why did you drink it?" "Better me than you." "No, not better, not even close to better." She grabbed his hand with 2 of hers. "I have lost everyone, my parents, my friends from childhood who could not handle court politics. I will not lose you too." "You will not lose me." "You cannot promise that. Your job is to take risks for me, to put yourself in danger." She was crying harder now. "I cannot watch you do that again. I cannot sit helplessly while you sacrifice yourself." "Lyra, I care about you." The words came out broken. "More than I should, more than is wise, but I cannot help it. You are the first person in years who made me feel safe, who made me feel seen, and I almost lost you." Squeezed her hand as hard as his weak grip would allow. "I am here. I am not going anywhere. Promise me." "I promise." She put her head down on the bed beside him and cried, lifted his other hand, moving slowly, and rested it on her hair. Outside the window, the city glowed in the evening light. Somewhere, Lord Vex sat in a cell. Somewhere, people plotted and schemed. But in this moment, in this room, there was only them. "Protecting you is not just my job anymore," said quietly. Lyra lifted her head. "What is it then?" "It is what I choose. Every day, I choose you." She stared at him. Then she smiled through her tears. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Then I choose you too," she said. Spent 2 weeks recovering. The doctors said it was a miracle he survived it all. The poison was designed to kill biology instantly, but human bodies worked differently. His liver processed the toxins slowly, buying time for the doctors to help him. Lyra visited every day. Sometimes she sat quietly, working on her data pad while he slept. Sometimes she talked about court business, asking his opinion even though he could barely stay awake. Sometimes she just held his hand. Visited too. "The nobles are divided," she told him on the 5th day. "Half think you are a hero, half think you are a fool, but all of them are talking about you." "What do they say?" "That you drank poison for the queen, that a human valued her life above his own. Some find it admirable, others find it disturbing," smiled slightly. "They do not understand humans at all." When was finally strong enough to walk, Lyra took him to the throne room. It was empty except for the two of them and a handful of guards at the doors. Lord Vex's trial is tomorrow, she said. They stood before the throne, but she did not sit. The evidence is clear. He hired the priest. He planned my assassination. The law says he should lose his lands and titles. But he has allies, powerful families who benefit from his mining operations. They are pushing me to show mercy, to give him a fine and exile instead of taking everything. She looked up at the empty throne. They say being too harsh will make me look weak, that queens should be merciful. What do you want to do? I want to strip him of everything. I want to make an example that shows what happens when someone tries to kill a queen. Her four hands clenched into fists. But I am afraid of making enemies, afraid of looking like a tyrant, afraid of making the wrong choice. Thought about the 12 people he failed to save, about the weight of decisions that could not be undone. Do what is right, not what is easy, he said. You know what he deserves. The nobles will always find something to criticize. That is what nobles do, but your people will see justice done. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Following through is the hard part. She looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded. You are right. Tomorrow I will do what must be done. The trial took place in the great hall. Every noble in the capital attended. Lord Vex stood in chains before the throne, his red eyes burning with rage. The prosecutor presented the evidence, the priest's confession, the money trail that led to Vex's accounts, the communications between Vex and his agents. It was overwhelming and clear. Vex's lawyer argued for mercy, spoke of his client's long service to the crown, his contributions to the economy, his family's noble history. Finally, it was time for Queen Lyra to pass judgment. She stood from her throne, her voice carried across the hall. Lord Vex, you attempted to murder your queen. You corrupted a religious ceremony. You endangered thousands of citizens who attended the festival. You have no excuse and no defense. Your Majesty, Vex's lawyer began, if you would consider. I am not finished. Lyra's voice cut like a blade. I have heard the arguments for mercy. I have been told that seizing your holdings would be too harsh, that I should think of your allies and their concerns. She paused, the hall was silent. But I am thinking of my people, of the priest you corrupted, who betrayed his faith for money, of my bodyguard, who nearly died drinking poison meant for me, of every citizen who should be able to trust that their queen's life is not for sale to the highest bidder. She raised one hand. By my authority as Queen of House, I strip you of all titles, all lands, and all holdings. Your properties are forfeit to the crown. Your family name is removed from the noble registry. You will be exiled to the outer colonies, never to return to Prime. Gasps filled the hall. Nobles whispered urgently to each other. Vex's face twisted with fury. You will regret this. My allies will not stand for this. Your allies are welcome to voice their concerns through proper channels. If any of them attempt what you attempted, they will face the same fate. Lyra's gaze swept across the assembled nobles. Let this be clear. I am not a weak queen who can be frightened or manipulated. I am not a prize to be won through schemes and marriages. I am Lyra of House, and I will protect my people above all else. The guards took Vex away. He shouted threats until the doors closed behind him. Lyra sat back on her throne. She looked exhausted but satisfied. Standing at his post beside the throne felt something like pride. That evening, Lyra summoned to her private chambers. When he arrived, she was standing by the window, looking out at the city. 3 noble houses have sent messages, she said without turning around. They offer their support. They say they have wanted someone to stand up to Vex for years but lacked the courage. That is good news. It is politics. They sense which way the wind is blowing and adjust their sails. She finally turned to face him, but some of the messages were real. People who truly believe I did the right thing. Because you did. Because you told me to, she walked toward him. Everything good I have done since you arrived, you have been part of it. You have made me stronger, braver, better. You were always those things. You just needed someone to remind you. Lyra stopped directly in front of him. I have received 3 marriage proposals this week from different royal houses across the galaxy, all very advantageous, all very political. Felt something cold settle in his stomach. I see. Political marriages are expected. The queen must secure alliances, must produce heirs, must think of the dynasty. Her voice was flat. That is what says, what the council says, what everyone says. Then you should consider them. Is that what you think I should do? He wanted to lie, wanted to say yes, wanted to make this easier for both of them, but he had promised always to be honest with her. No, he said quietly, but what I think does not matter. You are the queen, I am just your bodyguard. Just my bodyguard, she repeated the word slowly. Is that all you are? What else can I be? I have no title, no noble blood, no fortune. I am a human from a single planet with nothing to offer you. You stayed still for 6 hours while I slept on your shoulder. You drank poison meant for me. You tell me the truth when everyone else tells me lies. You see me, Lyra, not Queen Lyra. Her eyes were bright. Do you think titles and fortunes matter more than that? To the court they do. I am the queen. I decide what matters to the court. She reached out and took his hand. Do you remember that night on the observation deck when I fell asleep? Yes. Do you know what that meant to me? Not just that you stayed still, but that you could be still at all. She lifted one of her 4 arms. My people are never still. We are always moving, always active. Our 4 arms mean we are constantly doing something. Stillness does not come naturally to us. She lowered her arm. But you, a human with only 2 arms, you can be perfectly still. You can wait. You can be patient in a way my people cannot imagine. And in that stillness, I found peace for the first time in years. Lyra, I am changing the court protocols, she said. I am appointing a new royal consort. His heart stopped. One of the proposals. No, she smiled. I am appointing you. He stared at her. That is impossible. I am the queen. Nothing is impossible if I declare it so. The nobles will never accept a human consort. Then they can learn to accept it or find themselves on ships to the outer colonies. Her grip on his hand tightened. I am done letting others tell me how to live my life. Done accepting that I must be alone because that is how queens are supposed to be. I choose you, not because it is political, not because it is expected, but because I want to. I am not royal. I cannot give you what a proper consort could give you. You give me something no one else can. You give me truth, trust, peace. She moved closer. You give me yourself. That is worth more than any kingdom. Felt something break inside him. All the walls he had built, all the distance he had tried to maintain, it crumbled. I choose you too, he said. I have chosen you since the moment you fell asleep on my shoulder, maybe even before that. She smiled. It was the smile that made stars look dim. Then it is settled. The court will talk. Let them talk. Your advisors will object. Already knows. She approves. She says anyone who can stand still for 6 hours has the patience needed to deal with royal politics. What about children, heirs? And humans cannot have children together, but there are other ways to secure succession. I can name an heir from my extended family, or we can adopt. The dynasty will continue. She touched his face with one hand. But first, I just want to be happy. Is that allowed? It is allowed. The next day, Queen Lyra made the announcement before the full court. She named as her royal consort and chief advisor. The hall erupted in whispers and gasps. But Lyra stood tall on her throne, her hand holdings, and she spoke with absolute authority. I have heard the whispers, she said. I know what you say about humans, that they are weak, that they are simple, that they do not belong in our courts." She looked out at the assembled nobles. "But I have learned something these past months. Humans have a strength we do not recognize. They have patience where we have restlessness. They have stillness where we have constant motion. They have loyalty where we have only ambition." She gestured too. "This human drank poison meant for me. He stood guard through the night without complaint. He gave me honest counsel when others told me only what I wanted to hear. If that is weakness, then I pray more of us could be so weak." An older noble stood, recognized her as Lady, one of the most respected voices in the court. "Your Majesty, we do not question the human's character, but tradition." "Tradition changes," Lyra interrupted. "My parents broke tradition when they implemented new safety standards. I break tradition now by choosing my own consort. That is what leaders do. We make the hard choices that others fear to make." Lady looked at for a long moment. Then she bowed. "If the queen has spoken, then the court will follow." Others followed her lead. Some bowed deeply, some nodded reluctantly. A few left the hall in protest. But most stayed. Most watched with curious eyes as their queen held the hand of a human and smiled like she had found something precious. That night stood with Lyra on the same observation deck where she had fallen asleep months ago. The nebula gardens bloomed outside, beautiful and eternal. "Are you afraid?" Lyra asked. "Terrified," admitted. "I do not know how to be a consort. I barely know how to be a bodyguard." "You know how to be honest, how to be kind, how to stand still when it matters." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "That is all I need. I will probably make mistakes. We both will, but we will make them together." They stood in comfortable silence watching the stars. His arm was around her. Her forearms were at rest. For once she was completely still. In the palace below, the court whispered and plotted and planned. In the city beyond, citizens argued about whether a human consort was progress or madness. Across the galaxy, other queens and kings heard the news and wondered what it meant. But on the observation deck, two people stood together in perfect stillness. A queen who had learned to trust, a guard who had learned to hope. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of noise and motion and constant change, the greatest power was simply this: standing perfectly still with someone you love. The stars turned overhead. The nebula gardens bloomed and faded and bloomed again, and in the quiet they both found peace.